Chris, why don't we get into your story, a story I think you've been itching to tell for several months now?
Yeah, I was going to wait a little longer, but since I'm going to be taking the plea deal on Tuesday anyway, it doesn't matter anymore because it's not going to go to trial. But officially, within a couple of days, I am officially going to lose my Second Amendment rights for the rest of my life unless something happens in my state or I move out.
So why don't you start at the beginning and tell us what happened?
Okay, so on September...
And change names and all that good stuff.
Okay. Yeah. September of 2020, my mom's ex-boyfriend, who I'll call Rufus, that's just the first name that came to my head, I do not know what the hell happened, but I was cleaning out my car, and I left the trash bags that I filled up in front of the garage. Now, they were out of the way mostly, but, I forgot about them because it was hot that day, and I went inside to cool off, and I forgot about them. Well, apparently, he found them, he got furious, and he stomps in, and he's screaming, demanding to know where I am. And when I realized it's about the garbage bags, I didn't want to do anything about it because, like I said, he's up there stomping around, screaming and all that. So I locked myself in my room and hope he calms down, but minutes go by, he's not calming down. Then I hear him start throwing stuff around. He starts punching the walls, destroying our house. Then he's threatening me, he's threatening my mom, my dad, and finally, I can't get him calmed down. I'm scared for my life out there. I'm having a full-blown panic attack, so I finally had enough. So I grabbed my shotgun because I thought the shotgun would scare him off. I ordered him to leave. He threw a portable fan at me, and in the chaos, fearing that he was coming down to attack me, I fired a warning shot into the ceiling. He took off, and I was furious, and I ordered him to leave and never come back. And, he said that and basically earlier he had threatened to say that if you call the cops on me, I'm going to sure we're both going to go to prison. So fearing he was going to call the cops and say that I was a crazy maniac going on a shooting rampage, I called them to report him. So finally they arrive, I cooperate, I give them all the details, and the police act all sympathetic. Guess what happens shortly afterwards? They tell me I have to go to jail, and I have to spend the day in jail, and while in jail, they hand me a letter saying I'm the one being charged with domestic violence.
So you save your mom and your family from someone trying to commit domestic violence, and yet you're the one committing domestic violence.
Well, and the argument they're making is that, well, he wasn't actually physically abusive and all that. It's like, he was still emotionally abusive, and just because he never hit anyone before doesn't mean he wasn't going to start doing it. I mean, I know he's hit my dog before. I know he's hit our cats before, so... Well,
and you also said he was punching the wall and throwing things.
Yeah!
And you also did everything you could to escape the situation. I don't know if Wisconsin is a castle doctrine state or not.
It's not a castle doctrine.
Okay.
Unfortunately, it's not castle doctrine.
But I mean, even without that, by running to your room and locking the door, you tried to escape the situation and let it simmer down.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter. And and I've been battling this for close to a year now. I got a lawyer and all that. Well, for a while, it took me forever to, we had to scrap together to get a lawyer because the public defense office wasn't taking my case because they kept delaying it. I kept calling them every couple weeks, and then they never heard back from me. So finally we got a lawyer, and, we tried over and over again, and the DA just kept ignoring me and kept ignoring our case. And finally, my lawyer makes contact with him. He says he's ready to plea, but the thing is, the DA is adamant, saying, I do not want your client to own guns anymore. So, in my honest opinion, I don't want to sound like Alex Jones or anything. I think I was targeted because I was a gun owner. Oh, and by the way, as part of the procedure, they took all my other weapons away, and as far as my knowledge, they never got a warrant for it. And I looked up the rule. Yes, they could take the shotgun I used to commit the crime, but the other weapons they could not take unless they had a warrant to take them. I tried bringing it up with my lawyer, but he said and told me that's a civil asset case, and right now I can't do that because you're hiring me to be a criminal attorney, so when this is over, you're going to have to sue the Green Bay Police Department, which I'm not going to be able to afford, so...
Yeah.
I mean...
because we don't have loser pays in this country, so...
Yeah.
Even if you win, you still lose. And
yeah.
Probably better off just, well, I was going to say save up for some more guns, but you can't do that no, I don't know. You were pleading no contest, right?
Yeah.
So
the problem is that Wisconsin has one of those ex post facto rules in place that says if you're convicted of domestic violence, whether it's a felony or a misdemeanor, you can't have guns.
But it's not a guilty plea. You're pleading nolo contendere.
Doesn't matter because they are going to find me guilty regardless. That's what he told me.
Even if you plead no contest.
Yep.
Well, that's messed up.
Yeah, I know. And I brought that up. I told my lawyer, do you know how unconstitutional that is? And to paraphrase what he said, he's basically saying, yeah, I understand it's technically unconstitutional, but you know what? The state doesn't care. State and local governments, they do not care. All they care about is what X court said from some obscure trial years ago that nobody's heard of.
It's also not lost on me that this is the same state that's prosecuting Kyle Rittenhouse.
And that one girl who killed a guy that had kidnapped her and was planning to sell her into sex slavery.
Oh, yeah, I forget her name, but yeah, I know the one you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we covered both of those on the podcast.
Yeah, basically, that's my plan. My plan is I'm just going to have to take it, go on the probation, but once I save enough money, I'm either going to move to a county within my state that's a self-declared Second Amendment sanctuary, and if that doesn't work, I'm leaving. I'll go to Texas. I think
the only real issue might be, how is it going to show up on a federal background check? Because that's going to be nationwide.
Yeah. Well, I don't know, but I'm leaving. Like I said, if that doesn't work, then I'm going to leave. I'm going to leave to Texas or Wyoming, whatever, because those states are flat out saying they're not going to enforce any laws, even the federal ones.
Yeah, it looks like Texas is about to pass constitutional carry.
Yeah.
Yeah, stand your ground, fish run. I had asked him about that earlier. That's called the Castle Doctrine.
Wisconsin.
It's the same thing in this case because Chris was in his home. Stand your ground is also applying that to if you're out in public or somewhere else and someone's attacking you, you don't have the obligation to try and retreat. You can actually stay there. But I mean, if you're in your home, they end up being the same thing.
Yeah. And one thing I'm going to do in the meantime while I'm on probation, and I did ask my lawyer for this, and he said, oh, yeah, you perfectly can do it, is that when I have the free time, when I'm not working, I'm going to be showing up, whenever I can as possible in front of the DA's office, and I'm going to be holding up signs and passing out flyers explaining my scenario, because I asked him, can I legally do it? He says, yep, it's protected by First Amendment, and if they try to get you with that, that's really not going to help them.
Yep.
And here's the thing, before any state is out there saying, well, you're taking the plea agreement. Here's what happened if I won't take the plea agreement. And my lawyer looked over it and he said, the sad truth is that I don't think you're going to win if you take it to trial because there's just too many odds against you because the county I live in is very anti-gun. And right now, Wisconsin is being governed by a Joe Biden wannabe. So if I were to fight this in court and get convicted, here's what's going to happen to me. I'm going to spend 16 months in jail. And I think Wisconsin jails are 23-1, meaning you're in your cell for 23 hours, only out for 1 hour, which is psychological torture, I might add. I'd have to pay $11,000 in fines. And not only would I lose my Second Amendment right, I would lose my voting rights permanently. Because it would be considered a felony, and not to mention I could be put on felony probation, which is even worse than misdemeanor probation. If I recall correctly, if you're on felony probation, you can't even leave the state.
Just so everyone knows, this is something that Chris and I have been talking about, in private. I've let him, vent in my direction and just tried to give him what advice, I could. I couldn't give him legal advice. That's what his lawyer's for. But I think the ultimate advice I gave you, Chris, was just consider what future Chris is going to think. If, 5, 10, 20 years from now, future Chris looking back at that, if you take the deal, is he going to think, wow, I'm glad I took that deal, or gee, I wish I had fought, or the other way around, if you'd fought, was that a fight worth having, or would future Chris just be going, gee, that wasn't worth it? So that I think is good general life advice. Think of what the future you years from now is going to think.
And like I said, the reason why I'm not going to fight it is because sadly I have thought about it, and the truth is the odds are stacked against me, and it's going to be a harder fight for me if I'm convicted of a felon than if I take the plea but fight it, later, through my other rights. Because my personal concern right now, though, is that I can't own guns, and anyone who's paying attention to what's been going on there knows that America is not in a good position right now, and I don't want to sound paranoid or anything, but what's going to happen if a riot breaks out in my town and I can't defend myself?
Yeah.
Of course it wouldn't have mattered, because we've seen plenty of times of people pulling their guns on rioters saying, take your riots somewhere else, but leave my place alone. The rioters call the cops, and the cops are like, oh yeah, you can't point your guns at them. We have to take you to jail.
But move somewhere where there's a high concentration of gun owners, especially concealed carry owners, because it's sort of like a vaccine and herd immunity. If enough people in your area have firearms, then it kind of protects you.
Oh yeah, it's going to be like, yeah, if we were living in Texas, I'm pretty sure this never would have gotten the case, because, the police would be like, but Mr. DA, why aren't you going to charge it? It's like, this is Texas. Almost everyone has a gun in Texas. Every single juror I'm going to get up there is probably going to be a gun owner or is friends with someone who's a gun owner. And what are they going to say? They're going to say, well, he had every right to protect his mother and his house. But sadly, I don't. I live in the Midwest.
That's why I think it's going to be interesting in November when the Rittenhouse case comes forward, just to see what they say, because you could not ask for a more textbook example of self-defense, and you could not ask for a more textbook example of someone who defended himself with a firearm, who kept his head, who only shot when necessary. Of course, that's not what the news media is telling you about it, but it'll be really interesting trying to see how they prosecute that and how the media covers it. And
I'm sorry, but I've seen plenty of videos of the DA, of the prosecutor who's prosecuting Kyle Rittenhouse, and I can smell corruption all over him, because he is doing everything he can to make sure that Kyle does not have a chance to defend himself properly.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, I am just so pissed off. And, and like I said, even though I don't like the BLM people and all that, I do understand the anti-police mentality, because it's like, wow,